How's it going, everyone? College Lefty, and in this video I ranked the top 10 players at each position, so let's go ahead and get right into it. And as of right now, I think there are about 15 to 20 guys that you could probably consider for the top 10 at their respective positions, especially guys in their secondary positions as well. And I also want to mention that my top 5 for my updated list really hasn't changed a whole lot. So we're starting off with the catchers. We have Salvador Perez at number 10 and Gary Carter at number 9. I still think, even though Gary Carter kind of has 86 contact, lower contact against righties, he is still pretty usable on all-star difficulty. Some of these rankings will depend on the difficulty that you're playing on, but for the most part, I'm kind of ranking these guys on all-star and Hall of Fame. Craig Biggio was on this list as a second baseman in the previous video, and I decided to put him on here as a catcher. This time around, I think there are a few better second baseman options now, and probably one other catcher that you could plug in at the back end of the top 10 would be Jason Kendall, but he is more of a contact hitter. I would prefer someone like Carlos Santana or Francisco Alvarez. Some people might have Francisco Alvarez ranked a little bit higher than 5. I would just prefer a couple of these other guys over him. At number 4, we have Pudge Rodriguez. I still think this is one of the better home run derby cards. Only a couple of home run derby cards on this list. At number 3, JT Realmuto. And you might have JT Realmuto at number 2. I would prefer Kensuke Kondo. I know he's only a 97 overall. But personally, I think he is a really good all-around catcher. He has a lot of value as well. You can kind of, move him around if you need to. If you want to bring in another righty at a different position, you can move this guy anywhere on the field pretty much. At number 1, though, we have to go with Jorge Posada, and I don't foresee this changing anytime soon unless they were to come out with maybe Adley Rutschman, like a 99 overall Adley Rutschman, then he would probably be the number 1 catcher. And that's another reason why I wanted to update my top 10 list kind of before Season 2 is launched, but now we're getting into some first baseman. I know that was a second baseman in Rod Carew, but I think as a secondary first baseman, if you're going with more of a complete all-around player, maybe not as much power, then Rod Carew would be a great option for you. At number 9, we had Willie McCovey, and at number 8, Mark McGwire. This pick might surprise you here at number 8. Mark McGwire, just to me, is not the greatest card. I think there are a lot of better cards than him, but it is what it is. At number 7, we have Miguel Cabrera. I did not include this card on my last top 5 video. I think he's just outside the top 5, but I think if he had maybe a little bit of a better swing, personally, then he might be higher. At number 6, I would use Buck O'Neil, especially with the boost, right? That's one thing I'm not really taking into too much consideration in this video, like Ryan Howard with the cover athlete boost. He would be way up there in terms of first baseman. But without it, I'd probably put him around the 5 spot. At number 4 for first baseman, Jock Peterson, I think, is still one of the most underrated cards throughout the entire game. At number 3, Munetaka Murakami. If this card had quirks, he might be number 2, maybe a higher up on the third baseman list as well. But I think because Lou Gehrig has the quirks, he's kind of more of an all-around player, right? He has a little bit better vision, so he's going to make more consistent contact, not strike out as much. But Babe Ruth, I think, is the hands-down best first baseman in the game. You could plug this card in at DH. You could even put him out there in right field. If you get him paralleled up a little bit, he'll have a little bit better reaction, but he will still get bad animations out there. But now we're getting into second baseman. Jimmy Rollins at number 10. I don't think that card is as valuable at shortstop. I think there's some better options there. At number 9, we have Luis Arias. This card is kind of similar to Rod Carew in a lot of ways, but I think Rod Carew might be just a little bit of a better version. At number 8, we have Xander Bogaerts. I think this card is still really usable. You could put him in the top 10 for shortstops as well. Pretty much everybody other than Cano, because he doesn't play shortstop, would kind of be in the top 10, at least at the back end of the second baseman list. We also have Rod Carew as a top 6 second baseman. I put him in here at number 6. You might have a couple of these guys rearranged a little bit, right? Like Rod Carew's more of a complete all-around contact hitter than Jazz Chisholm. Jazz Chisholm, if you have a guy on second base, though, then he'll play pretty similar to that Rod Carew card, even facing a lefty with that clutch attribute. Jeremy Pena at number 4. I think this card is really, really good. If you don't have some of the collection rewards like Derek Jeter, like Trey Turner, and a couple of these other guys that I have up here on this list, Elly De La Cruz is a really good option at number 3. He's a switch hitter. Ketel Marte at number 2. Really solid second baseman. Really the only true second baseman in the top 5 on this list. But I think this card is also in the top 10 of every other position that he plays. Francisco Lindor, I would say, is the best second baseman right now. At the current stage of the game cycle, a lot of people are using a lot of powerful left-handed hitters, and I think having a solid second baseman that can react really well is extremely valuable. But with that said, there are other guys too. Jeremy Pena coming in at number 10 for shortstops, and now we're looking at Chris Bryant here as well for shortstops. You could put this card in the top 10 for all of his positions as well. A lot of these cards are valuable, versatile. You can plug them in wherever. You can platoon them. They have a lot of value. I think Wander Franco is a really underrated shortstop in this game. He does have a really nice swing. He kind of plays above his attributes a little bit. Elly De La Cruz I have ranked a little bit lower at the shortstop position, but that's just because I feel like there are a lot more options, right? He's still a top 10 card. I would probably use him at second base, but that is because I already have a lot of these other guys that I have ranked higher than him at shortstop. So those are just kind of some examples. I would personally use Ketel Marte, even though he has lower fielding. I would like to use him or maybe Francisco Lindor. A lot of repeats in this list. I think I almost had to repeat a couple of guys just because I want to make the list as kind of true as possible to what I think, as well as to what I see other top players or top players in general, people that kind of really understand the game, what they're using. But I would be using a lot of these guys on the back end of this list if I didn't have 250 something set one players and Tatis and some of these guys on my team already. I think Tatis is the best shortstop right now in the game, especially because once he is at a certain parallel, he'll have 99 speed, diamond defense. But right now on my team, I'm using Tatis in right field because I have Griffey in center, and I want to use Trey Turner in his primary because in his secondary, he doesn't quite get gold defense for me yet. But with that said, we're getting into some third basemen now. We have Yohan Moncada at number 10. At number 9, Cal Ripken Jr. I think that card could be ranked a little higher if you really like his swing. I personally don't, but the attributes kind of speak for himself. I would still use that card as a top 10 player. I would just have to kind of get used to his swing a little bit. At number 8, we had Eddie Matthews. At number 7, I would probably put Hank Aaron just a little bit higher than Eddie Matthews with that versatility. I think he plays just a little bit better. I think he has a better swing, and he's kind of a push hitter, which is kind of interesting. At number 6, we have Chris Bryant. I think that card is a solid third baseman. Probably I would use him at third over any other positions for my team right now if I were to move Chipper over to short. With that said, Matt Chapman is in the top 5. Kind of one of the main changes to my top 5 here with the Lightning Matt Chapman. I think that card could be really usable, especially with the captain Carlos Santana card. But Manny Machado at number 4, I would want to use this card if I didn't have other players like in the top 3 here at all of his positions. With that said, Munetaka Murakami is a really, really solid third baseman, first baseman. I have him at number 3 for both. And right now, I think Francisco Lindor is probably the top 2 third baseman as well. I mean, he's only going for like 20K stubs right at this moment, and I think his price is going to go way up once the XP program is no longer available for that first season. But Chipper Jones is by far the best all-around third baseman. If you have the cover athlete boost, he has 99 defense over there, and I'm pretty sure like 94 at shortstop in his secondary with that cover athlete boost. But at number 10 for outfielders, I did mix up the back end of my list. I went with Dave Parker, and then at number 9, Vladimir Guerrero. I think Vlad is the best DH in Diamond Dynasty right now, and that's where I'm using him. But I think you almost have to put his bat out there somehow. I think he has to be in the top 10, even though he won't get to any balls, especially in a deep stadium with like 420 feet center field and maybe 380 in the gaps. I don't really think he's going to be that good. But just kind of like Babe Ruth, you have to put him out there somewhere. Babe Ruth will get to the ball a little bit more, even though he doesn't have, the speed that Vlad does. They kind of have this similar speed, but better reaction for Babe. Torrey Hunter at number 6. I think that card's a really solid all-around player. At number 5, we have Kyle Tucker. This card I haven't really used this year. I've used him plenty of times in previous MLB The Show games, but he is really solid, and his price has come down quite a bit. At number 4, we have Julio Rodriguez. And this card has stayed in the same spot as the last video, but he has kind of moved down a little bit since he first came out, just because we've gotten a couple other really solid outfielders as well. But I would probably use Sammy Sosa over him. Mike Trout, to me, is in that 2 spot, but you could also plug in Tatis right behind him. Tatis I did not include in the outfield. I wanted to kind of put some other guys in there, but I definitely think Tatis is a top 3 outfielder, and that's currently, once again, where I'm using him. But Ken Griffey Jr. to me is the best outfielder in the game. Kind of lacking in the vision category as well. People don't realize how much that affects the timing window while you're playing, especially on the harder difficulties. But I wanted to put in an honorable mention for a starting pitcher in terms of Walter Johnson. And I think Lance Lynn, depending on what type of hitter your opponent is, then I think Lance Lynn could be maybe a little better. If you need more of a slower pitcher, but with a good break and good pitch repertoire, kind of better than Walter Johnson. At number 9, we have Bob Feller. At number 8, we have Madison Bumgarner. Same type of thing. You could flip-flop those guys. It depends on what your opponent is using for their lineup, and as well as, do they hit a lefty better than a righty. Grayson Rodriguez, I think, is a really solid option at number 7. At number 6, this kind of might surprise you a little bit. I do have Dustin May ahead of Grayson Rodriguez. I think this card is absolutely disgusting, and Grayson Rodriguez is just a little bit easier to hit. Dustin May has some some type of deceptive motion to him, in my opinion. At number 5, we have Yu Darvish. At number 4, we have Bob Gibson. This card throws extremely hard. I know that the 4-seam fastball with outlier in this year's game is a little bit better than I think it's a little bit better than the sinker with outlier, depending on what your opponent is doing, what their tendencies are. But that 103 fastball, 104 fastball is kind of crazy, rather than like a 96 or 97 sinker. But the top 5 for my starting pitchers really hasn't changed a whole lot. I've adjusted the top 3 a couple times. I had Shohei Ohtani at 3, Pedro Martinez at 2, and Roki Sasaki, I think, is by far the best starting pitcher in the game. Now we're going to get into some closing pitchers, some relief pitchers. At number 10, we have Sean Doolittle. I think this card is really good. He does have a slurve. Not that many pitchers in the game in general have a slurve, not to mention lefties. But Camilo Doval, I think, is still a really good card. Only a 3-pitch mix. You could probably put Edwin Diaz in place of him, or maybe Rob Nen as well. Trevor Hoffman could easily be in the top 10. I didn't put him on here. I think he is a top relief pitcher. I think there are some better cards too if you wanted to use a different captain, but Trevor Hoffman with the captain boost is really solid. I kind of left him off the list because of Cano. I wanted to use and talk about that guy a little bit. Looks really solid with a good pitch mix. John Donaldson, I know he's a starting pitcher. If you have the Buck O'Neil boost, I think this card's a must-have in your bullpen. He just plays better than every other relief pitcher that's left-handed. I've used that card many, many times in relief. His slider's disgusting. I think he could be in some ways a little bit better than Billy Wagner. I know that might sound crazy, but the 92, 93 slider with the lower K per 9, right, if we're comparing John Donaldson to Billy Wagner. Andrew Chafin is probably the best left-handed closing pitcher that I've used personally, but right behind him, I don't have Billy Wagner, so right behind him would be John Donaldson for me. That'd be my go-to guy. I know we have Gregory Soto. I know we got Sean Doolittle, but I really do like that John Donaldson card. With that said, I think Gagne and Hader are still the top 2 relief pitchers in the game. You could flip those guys around, but we might see some other guys that make the list the next time around once Season 2 launches, but that's my top 10 players at each position in MLB The Show 23. I hope you all enjoyed, and let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Until next time, peace out.